Russ Mitchell. How are you, my friend? Welcome into the game in Tuscaloosa.
I'm kicking the tires and lighting the fires, baby. How are you?
Man, I'm good, man. You got a big prediction for Alabama and LSU, my friend. And I just want to get right to it, man.
Well, I mean, I'd love to say it's the game of the week, but, I think there's more on the line in terms of Auburn versus Texas A&M, which just speaks to, right now, this was the game that we used to set our clocks to, right? This is the reason why Alabama has its bye week when it has its bye week, why LSU has its bye week when it has its bye week, and it's a 22-point spread.
It's hard to wrap your brain around a 22-point game in Alabama and LSU.
It is until you actually start to break it down, all right? First of all, and I try to explain this to people when I talk to folks outside of the state of Alabama, Nick Saban and the Alabama football program, how every coach says that they're only looking ahead. They're only looking at the game this week. No one's looking ahead to next week, right? That's usually nonsense, except with Alabama. I truly believe that if Nick Saban is playing Vanderbilt next week, the only thing anybody is talking about is Vanderbilt, right? And that's a good thing because you realize that LSU, after this game, LSU will finish the season against 3 coaches that are going to get fired. LSU will finish the season against Brett Bielema in Arkansas, Butch in Tennessee, and Sumlin at Texas A&M. At home.
Wow. Yeah.
That's it. So if LSU beats Alabama, they win the West. Think about how crazy that is. LSU is not a good team this year. They lost to Troy. All right? And if LSU beats Alabama, there's likely nothing that Bama can do about it because they're not going to lose to Arkansas, Tennessee, or Texas A&M.
Wow.
So I think everybody at Alabama, everybody in that football complex is very, very focused on winning this game for any number of reasons, whether it's Darius Geis running for 300 yards against Ole Miss, whether it's the realization that you can't lose this game and win the West, or whether it's just, we're a very focused team and we're not going to lose to one of our rivals.
Let me ask you, do you like that Coach O is up front when he says, he's asked about Alabama. He says they're the benchmark, they're the standard. This is the way that people in Louisiana define me. He even admits that he went out and hired Matt Canada to counter Alabama's defense. Do you like that upfront approach from Coach O?
Well, the jet sweep is not going to work against Alabama, man. You could run the jet sweep 50 times against Alabama, and it's going to work once. And only because Alabama's up by 30 and they got the second string in and someone missed an assignment, First of all, to answer your question, I have no problem with him saying that. It's the truth, first of all. Alabama is the gold standard right now in college football, so why wouldn't you try to mimic? If I was trying to build a football program, I'd try to do it. I would look back 10 years, and I would try to do exactly what Nick Saban did. It's impossible because there's only one Nick Saban, but I would try to do exactly what he did. Look, here's what you need to know about this game, and this is why Alabama's going to win 44-6.
Whoa. 44-6?
And there's some rat poison for you, Nick. You can joke on that and share it.
Hey, listen, this guy's warmed up, Russ. He told us yesterday he didn't even know that Alabama was ranked number 2 until right before he walked in the press conference. 24 hours later. You believe him? I don't believe him.
I believe him, actually.
I don't believe him. Listen, because he used it. He said, those guys disrespected you. Nick Saban used that number 2 ranking.
LSU's offensive line this year has only outplayed 3 teams. Brigham Young, which is maybe the worst team in America, Chattanooga, and Ole Miss. You can argue the second half of the Auburn game, LSU's offensive line was able to get a little bit of push. But let's just focus, okay? This is an LSU offensive line that 5 years ago could push on Bama. And in the span of 5 years, we're at a point where we're in November and the teams are BYU, Chattanooga, and a beat-up Ole Miss team. And to give you an idea, so you can totally understand, in SEC play so far this year, how many rushing touchdowns do you think LSU has?
I have no clue.
5. That's it.
Ew.
They're at the bottom. They're near the bottom of the conference. Do you know how many rushing touchdowns Alabama has allowed?
Not many.
1.
Oh, wow.
1. So you're talking about a team. Now, you can tell me Darius Geis has been injured and not been healthy, and you'd be right. And he's in much better shape than he is right now. But as Leonard Fournette showed us over the last 2 years, if there's nobody there to block for you, you're not going anywhere. And LSU's rushing problems this year have not been because Darius Geis has been hurt. It's because if you watch any LSU game this year, you've noticed that their offensive line is not pushing anybody off the line of scrimmage. LSU is not. If Darius Geis breaks 100, I'll be shocked. And for LSU to win, he'd have to get over 200.
Well, Russ, when you look at it, and you look back at Leonard Fournette, he had 79 yards in 2014. He had 31 in 2015. He had 35 in 2016. Darius Geis made a statement following the Arkansas game last year. I don't know why he went back to Alabama. I guess he was still kind of butthurt over that whipping, 10-0 down in Baton Rouge. And he said Alabama is scared of LSU's rushing attack. That's why they load the box.
Yeah. And it's also because LSU hasn't had a quarterback in 6 years, absent the 1 year that they had Menberger. But, yeah, well, that's what you do when a team's got a really bad quarterback is you stack the box. That's what LSU did when and Auburn didn't adjust in the second half of that game. Look, first of all, the reason why Leonard Fournette, and again, this is a perfect example. You just gave me a perfect example to my argument, which is in 2014, LSU had a decent offensive line. And that's why Leonard Fournette got, what did you say? What did he get, 101?
Well, no, he had 21 carries, 79 yards in 2014. 79, he had 31 in 2015 and 35 total yards rushing in 2016.
So basically, as that offensive line caliber has dropped over the last 3 years, you've seen what's happened to the running game. Now, I will say this. Darius Geis is he's very special, obviously. I mean, he's the first running back in the history of the SEC to have 3 250-yard-plus games. Ever. All the great running backs we've ever had. All the great running backs that we've ever admired. He's the only one to ever do that. So, that's very impressive. And he's a little bit different than Leonard. He's not just going to run right at you. He's going to come at an angle. He's a little shiftier. But ultimately, this offensive line for LSU is worse this year than it was last year. Worse. And I would say substantially worse. But by the way, it's not just that side of the ball. Flip it around and look at it the other way. When Alabama's got the ball, right? Alabama leads the country in running. 334 yards per game, right? In SEC play, 334 yards per game. In SEC play, do you know where LSU's run defense ranks?
I do not.
LSU, who has built a reputation over the last 10 years of having a run defense as good or, just a little bit off Alabama's, right? LSU's run defense this year is ranked between Kentucky and Missouri. LSU's run defense right now is allowing 5.2 yards per carry in SEC play.
Oh, wow.
5.2 yards per carry. And for the record, LSU hasn't played anybody as good as Alabama in SEC play. I expect Alabama, especially in the second half of this game, because LSU is not going to be able to substitute in guys like they did in 2011. So, I expect when they had 20 guys that they were playing in their defensive front seven, they don't have anything close to that anymore. So I expect Alabama to average over 6 yards per carry.
Russ, let me ask you, when you look at beating Alabama, it takes two things. It takes a dynamic quarterback like Deshaun Watson that we learned earlier today went down with an ACL injury, and we certainly terrible news coming out of Houston. It takes a quarterback like that can be a dual threat guy that can also throw the football, and it takes an A-plus offensive line. You have to be an elite offensive line, and LSU has neither.
LSU doesn't have a fantastic dual threat quarterback? That was a joke.
Oh, I thought you were going to counter and tell me Danny Etling was, because I was going to, Russ, are you drinking? Are you drinking this early?
Danny Etling. I mean, LSU is the place where don't reject quarterbacks go. I mean, it is just shocking. Or where, I'm expecting Jacob Eason to end up at LSU, right? If a quarterback can't cut it at Georgia, they end up taking a year off and then transferring to LSU. It's funny. We shouldn't laugh about this. It's been very disappointing. Look, LSU's offense is this. Because their offensive line can't control the line of scrimmage like they used to, they try misdirection plays, but watch the misdirection. Watch the movement by the offensive line. It's not that tricky. I've sat with a number of people who are very experienced in offenses, and we've looked at LSU. It's not that tricky what they do up front. It's not going to confuse anybody who's being coached by Nick Saban. Everybody will play their assignments. Everyone will be in the right place. You're not going to run anything like a jet sweep. And unlike the Auburn brain trust, Auburn has had two of the worst coaching performances this year that I have seen in a decade. The second half of the Clemson game and the second half of the LSU game. And, Alabama's not going to make any mistakes like that. If LSU adjusts, Alabama will adjust too. I think Alabama wins this game 44-6. And the only way LSU scores a touchdown is if their defense scores it.
Russ, I'm going to give you three opponents that they'll play in the month of November. You rank them as far as level of difficulty. Auburn, Mississippi State, LSU. How would you rank them as difficult, most difficult, all the way down to least difficult?
Well, I mean, I would say Auburn, first of all, only because that game's played in Auburn.
It is.
And, you all have gone into that stadium many times with better teams and, fought to a nail-biter whether you won or lost. I mean, those kind of games always sort of have a way of leveling things out, which is why they're so great. This Mississippi State game next week is going to be a tough game. You're playing at State, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I expect that Mississippi State, but Mississippi State is not yet at a point where they can jump to that elite level because they're so dependent on that running game, right? They're so dependent on in particular, the quarterback running the ball. And despite the fact that Fitzgerald is a big kid, he's 6'4", 235, Alabama's bigger and they like to hit quarterbacks. And Alabama likes to hit quarterbacks hard. And Alabama's actually, since they had Nick, willing to hit 1 second late. Alabama's willing to hit a quarterback a second and a half after, and that's enough to take Nick's legs away from him. And they don't really have that much after that. So you saw it when they played Georgia. You saw it when they played Auburn. The three best teams in the conference right now are still Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn. And I think that – so I would put Auburn, Mississippi State on the road, although I suspect you'll win. I suspect the spread on that will be 21 or 22. And then I think you blow away LSU.
Russ, be honest with me. Have you been hired by LSU and Coach O to come into Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and give us rat poison? Yes or no? Yes or no? Because, what this sounds like is rat poison.
I can guarantee you that the last person on the face of the earth that would ever hire me would be Coach O.
You don't give him any slack. I mean, I'm seeing quotes out there that you go on in Baton Rouge. You talk bad about him on Matt Moscana's show down there. I mean, you give this guy HELL, man.
Well, I talk bad about Nick when I think Nick deserves it. And Nick deserves it. There are times he, screws the pooch and makes ridiculously poor decisions. You can go back to the Auburn the Auburn game and some of his behavior on not kicking field goals late in the game. But, on the most part, you can't even – you do a disservice to the English language when you put Coach Orgeron in the same sentence with Nick Saban. Yeah, they are so far removed from each other in terms of ability and success that it's like they're playing different games.
Russ, I have way too much fun, man, with you, man. You got these folks out on Twitter, man. You get them so upset down in Baton Rouge, and then you come to Tuscaloosa, and they're loving on you, man. And they're always, they're tagging you in these tweets, and it's good.
I would love to be able to say negative things about y'all right now, but it's hard. My only complaint about this team, and we've been talking about it on and off this season, is I just would like to see you throw the ball a little bit more so that you have a little bit more experience at doing that, because the games, trust me, the games are coming where you're going to have to throw. At some point you're going to end up playing, that Auburn run defense is pretty good. The Georgia run defense is pretty good. When you get to the national champ, when you get to the college football playoff, the run defenses are going to be better, and you're going to have to throw the ball. So you threw it a little bit more in Tennessee. You opened it up towards the end of that game. You're going to have opportunities in this LSU game to throw it too. I think they're going to stack. The only way LSU is going to win this game is they're going to put 9 guys in the box, and they're going to say, beat us with your quarterback.
Russ, final question. Let's go to Georgia here for just a minute, because now Kirby Smart gets to wear the big bullseye, the target on the back of his shoulder pads as that number 1 team. You think they can handle the final month of November being that number 1 team for at least a little bit?
Yes. Do you realize that that Fromm has the best quarterback rating in the SEC right now as a freshman? 13 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's only throwing for 160 yards a game, but that's because they want to run the ball too, just like Alabama, right? But, in terms of, you always say, can you just be a good game manager? Can you be effective? He leads the conference in quarterback rating. So, and he's getting, not only that, and not surprisingly, he's getting better and better as the year's going along. I would like to see, the spread in this game with South Carolina this weekend is like 30 points. I wouldn't want to touch that because I think it's 24. I suspect that Georgia's going to get up by a lot and then, put it in the bank and just start getting ready for the Auburn game. But I would like to see them, if they get ahead of South Carolina, I would like to see Fromm throwing the ball a little bit more so he gets a little bit more practice, because he'll need that against an Auburn run defense, and he'll certainly need it against Alabama in the championship game.
Russ Mitchell, CFB. Russ Mitchell, CFB. Hey, Russ, I must tell you, we had Pete Futak on earlier. He was talking smack about you, man.
His check's barely clear.
Okay.
So, he's in no position to be talking smack about me. Tell him to give me a raise, and then he can talk smack.
Got it. Russ, I appreciate you, man. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm just kidding. He wasn't really talking that bad.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I'm out next week. So
No. Then we're gonna have to hook up earlier in the week, man.
No, I'm having a little surgery on Monday, so everyone you all send me a few prayers. I'd appreciate that. Everything's gonna be okay, but I'd appreciate it. And as I've been saying all week, all season, please return LSU in the condition that you found them, because we need them for the rest of the season.
All right. Hey, Russ, certainly, man, we'll be thinking about you Monday. We'll talk to you hopefully in a couple of weeks then. Thanks, Russ. I appreciate you, man. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks, brother. Talk